Hello there. My name is Pash Force, and yeah, I know it's a little bit odd name, difficult to spell if nothing else. It makes perfect sense in my native Swedish, but I've been here in the States now for almost 30 years, so I can assure you that I've spelt it many times for many people. Maybe it's easier to remember me, if nothing else, as the Price Whisper. Now, I I didn't invent that myself. The story is that I was called the Price Whisperer so many times that I decided to simply adopt the moniker and call myself the Price Whisperer in many public appearances that I do. And if nothing else, it's maybe easier for you guys to understand. And that's something that I've become here over many years. I've really become a thought leader, maybe even the thought leader when it comes to pricing of products and services. And obviously, pricing is kind of important stuff, and pricing is really a big topic. It's a much bigger topic than most companies think it is, and that's because pricing by itself is the one thing that drives profitability in any company more than anything else you can do in your company. And profits are good. If you don't have profits in your company, eventually you don't have a company. Eventually you will run out of cash, you will run out of investors, and without profit you die. So pricing is really really important. And in this series of several YouTube videos, I'm going to talk about the importance of pricing, and specifically pricing strategy. And pricing strategy is an odd thing because every company has a pricing strategy. If you are selling something and you're selling it as a price as opposed to give it away, you have a pricing strategy, right? It may be a very simple pricing strategy, or it may be something very elaborate, but it is a strategy. It may be a strategy that you just do by default, by not thinking about it, or it may be a strategy that has where you have put a lot of effort and a lot of thought into what the strategy is going to be. But we're going to talk about some of the more simpler pricing strategies, and I'm going to spend a few minutes talk about one of the most popular ones, and that is Cost Plus. Now, what is Cost Plus then? Well, it's very easy. You take your cost and you say, on top of my cost, I'm going to add a fixed margin, right? It's there because it makes sense that you don't sell whatever you sell, whether it's a product or service, below your cost. You want to make sure that every product or every service engagement you sell are profitable, and so far so good. But the problem here is that your cost is really completely irrelevant for your customers. They don't care if your cost is X or Y or Z. They care about the value you deliver. And by using Cost Plus, it's a guaranteed pricing strategy to leave money on the table. Why is that? Well, again, because you use a fixed margin on top of your cost. And again, your cost is irrelevant for your customers. Now, different industries typically have different sort of rules of thumb for what that margin uplift or that margin is going to be, that plus margin on top of your cost. And obviously, I've seen many hundreds of companies that use Cost Plus, and I in manufacturing industries, traditional manufacturing industries. The margin uplift are typically between 35 to 50%. So you take your cost and you add 35% on top of that. or you take your cost and you add 50% on top of that. Now, there are issues here. First of all, yes, you can often, with great accuracy, to be honest, calculate what the cost of a product is or a cost of a service is, but that is without your general overhead. It's very difficult to with any kind of accuracy add the allocation of general overhead to a particular product or a particular service. So you hope that 35% is going to be enough to cover the general overhead, or the 50% is going to be enough to cover the general overhead. And sometimes it is, sometimes it's not. But you wouldn't know, right? Because you have priced your product based on cost, and your cost again have nothing to do with the value delivered to your customers. Now, I said manufacturing industries often have a cost plus factor of 35% or 50%. If you go to retail, you're typically more in the sort of 100%, so they double their cost. I personally have experience of some B2B electronics, and or electronics sold in a business environment, and there is typically you take your cost times 200%, and that's your price as a cost plus margin. I've also have experience from the high end audio industry, and then we take the cost times 5, and that's the price. And also if you buy consulting services from one of the large consulting firms, you pay typically 10 times what they are paying the person doing the actual consulting services. So it's 10x the cost. So and all of these have the wrong assumption, meaning that again, your costs have nothing to do with the value that you deliver to your customers. But CostPlus do have one single advantage, and that is very easy to understand. You say, okay, in our industry we're going to double our cost, and that is our price. It doesn't take anybody more than 30 seconds to set the price. It doesn't cost you any money. It leaves a lot of money on the table, but it doesn't cost you any money. It's easy for everybody in the company to understand. It's easy to within your company to communicate. But again, it's not the way to price the right way. And there's another interesting thing when you look at cost plus pricing, and that is that, let's say that you manage to lower your cost. What happened then is that your price is going to go down, but not only is your price going to go down in actual terms, your profit in actual dollars is going to go down as well. So think about this for a second. Say, just do a simple thought experiment here. Say that your cost is $100. Well, so you double that and your price is $200. But then you manage to lower your cost to $90. You still use that same margin, you double it, so your cost now is, or your price now is $180. So it's gone down with 10% as well. But that also means that your dollar margin has gone down from $100 to $90, right? So suddenly you're making less money by lowering your cost. Does that make sense to you? It doesn't make sense to me, that's for sure, because we're talking about other ways eventually of pricing that doesn't have this particular problem. Now, there are other problems with cost plus. Most companies have products that are both unique in some way, or services, I should say. Product or services that are unique in some way, and some product or services that are complete commodities. And if you have a cost plus pricing strategy, it really means that you typically have the same cost plus margin for all your products, whether they are commodity or whether they are unique. And it's typically the commodity products that drives the margin. And that's because they are the ones that are being sold in quantity typically. And a commodity product need to be sold on low price, because in a commodity marketplace, a low price is the most powerful and most effective decision driver for your customers. But it also means that those unique products that have some level of pricing power are going to be way, way, way underpriced. Because if you have unique product, by default, you have pricing power. Because your customers doesn't have much of alternative. They have to buy from you, or maybe they have to do jump through hoops to buy from somebody else. So unique products have by default always pricing power. And that's something that you also need to think about, that having the same margin across different product or different services that you sell is ludicrous, because different people, different circumstances and different products all have different value that they deliver to your customers. And because of that, they all should have different margins, and they all should have different prices. And if you don't do this, if you have a single margin for all your products, it's easy to communicate, but you are guaranteed leaving money on the table. Guaranteed. And why would you want to do that? When not only if you price correctly, if you understand the willingness to pay of your customers and so forth, and you have a more elaborate pricing strategy, you can make sure that you capture a larger portion of that willingness to pay, leading to higher profits, higher sales, and higher valuation. So, CostPlus, the choice is yours. Use CostPlus if you want to leave money on the table, or look for more elaborate pricing strategies if you think it's time to stop leaving money on the table. Hope this was informative. I'm looking forward to see you next week, and continue this discussion about different pricing strategies and how you can use pricing strategies, pricing power to drive higher sales and higher profits in your company. Thanks for your time, and I'm looking forward to see you soon again. Thank you.